All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Library Committee meeting on May 9th of 2023. I will now call on Julie Hale to provide the roll call.
Councillor Foxton.
Present.
Councillor Nowak. Chair Salonen.
Present.
Regional Chair Redmond.
Present.
Councillor Shantz.
Present.
Excuse me.
I'm present.
Very good.
Do we need to use our mics? Yes. Thank you.
I would like to acknowledge the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Neutral people. We also acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements and their contributions to our community. Does anybody have a declaration of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act today? Okay, seeing none, we will jump right into reports. I will call on Carol Pfeiffer, our financial analyst, to speak to report 4.1.
Julie, were you going to share the report?
Yes, we will share the report. It's just being uploaded, okay. I believe.
So the report is basically about the financial situation up to the end of December 31st, 2022. And the recommendation is that the Region of Waterloo Library Committee take the following action with respect to the year-end results, to approve the results for the library and to allocate the surplus of $66,127 to the Library Capital Reserve. Report highlights Section 4. There was a surplus of $66,000, and if we go to Appendix A, we can just see like some of the variances that led to the surplus. We had a $270,000 favorable variance on the compensation line, and that was a result of temporary staff layoffs and cancellation of summer student contracts. Slightly overspent on the services and supplies line, which was related to janitorial and cleaning supplies and spending on equity programs. And then when we get to the revenue, slightly below budget on the user fees, which was related to rentals and programming, shortfall in the provincial grants and subsidies. We were hoping to generate or more grants in 2022, and that didn't work out. And then in the contribution from reserves, you can see that it's favorable. We got more money from the reserves, and that was largely to cover the equity expenses. So overall, that led to a surplus of $66,000. On page 2 of the report, it just talks about Appendix B, and we were underspent on the RFID project. Well, we didn't spend any of the money. I think the budget was $35,000, and that got carried forward to 2023. In Section 5, the background, there was some committee had requested further information about previous periodic financial updates. One was regarding the prior year debenture payments and the RDC reserve balances. So all of the library debt is funded from library development charges. The debt servicing costs, principal and interest are about $20,000 per year from 2019 and 2022. And at the end of 2022, the outstanding debt is $109,000. The debt will be retired in 2028, and we cannot accelerate the payments. And at the end of 2022, the balance in the library development charge reserve is $670,000. Funding for COVID related costs in 2021. Given that the library posted a significant surplus in 2021, there was no further funding given to cover the COVID related costs. That wasn't deemed necessary, and the capacity in the municipal safe restart funding stream was preserved for assisting to phase in the interim housing strategy. So I guess the other financial implications in section 7, subject to board approval, the operating surplus will get allocated to the library capital reserve, and that is used as a source of funding for future library capital projects and other one-time costs. And at the end of 2022, the balance in the library capital reserve is $1,306,485. And in the North Dumfries Library Capital Reserve, which is basically the Taylor request, the balance at the end of December was $115,583. So are there any questions?
Councillor Foxton?
Thank you. Just on page 2, Appendix B, the radio frequency identification, what is that?
Cheryl, can you expand on that a little bit?
Yes. RFID, radio frequency identification. That was actually, we talked to that a little bit in the library operations report. It's a form of putting identification tags on all of the library resources that are in circulation. And it sets the groundwork for improved customer service because we can do self-checkout, self-check-in, scanning beds, opens up the ability for enhanced security and ensures efficient inventory control, paves the way for increasing our potential future service expansions such as smart doors and RFID pickup lockers. So other libraries across Ontario and across North America have instituted RFID. It's becoming best practice. It's not just paradigm shifting, it's actually becoming best practice in the amount of staff hours it saves and the ability to efficiently expand our footprint in a very cost-effective way.
So it's not really a radio.
No. So,
Thank you.
So all of our books would be tagged, books, DVDs, whatever that we check out would have tags on them, and the tags would be easily scanned. So right now we do have tags on all of our checked out items, and you have to hand scan each and every one of them. That adds up to hundreds of staff hours. So with RFID, it can be put on a scanning bed. You can check out multiple items at the same time. Staff can, or the patrons can check out their own items by putting them on scanning beds. They can return their own items by putting them on scanning beds. It's a lot more accurate, much more effective for inventory. And the really cool thing is how it allows, sorry, I shouldn't use the word cool, but the exciting thing is that how it allows us to expand our library footprint is going to be incredible. When you look at the cost of providing library service, the majority of the cost is involved in facilities and staffing. The actual cost of inventory, providing the collection, negligible. I hate to say it, but it truly is in the overall picture. If we were to have RFID lockers, we could expand our library footprint with very little facilities cost because you simply install the lockers. It would be 24/7 service. We'd have staff, of course, put items into the lockers, but it would be like a swipe card system. They've used this in other library systems. I believe it was Peterborough that had the brilliant idea of putting RFID lockers next to the LCBOs. Wow, did their circulation increase? So this is a project that we're going to be going out later this year with RFPs, and hopefully we'll be implementing it in 2024. What we're looking at is an extensible program with RFID. So in other words, buying the basics this year, whether it's the tags, the scanning beds, and then you can build from there. You can add security gates, you can add RFID lockers, you can add smart doors. The Freeholton branch at the Hamilton Public Library did smart doors on some of their branches, and they doubled their circulation while not having to increase staff one bit.
Councillor Nowak, did you still have a question?
Machine. Oh yeah, just clarity. So the balance of the development charge is 670. So by the time we're paid off, we're still going to have what, $575,000 in the development charge reserve. Plus we have another 1.3 million in reserve. So that's $2 million in reserves that we have sitting there. I mean, are there any thoughts on how we're going to be using them?
Well, part of the development charge reserve goes towards buying books. So basically, it kind of depends on how much is collected. So we've been having some very good years the last, I think, 2 or 3 years, but the few years before that, we had a lot less collections. So it's not really a steady stream. So we try to, estimate, kind of on an average basis how much we're going to collect and how much we should spend. But right now, we seem to have a little bit more in there than maybe we had intended. So there possibly could be a possibility that we could maybe increase the number of books or everything that are bought.
So could that be books or services or computers or any number of different capital sort of things?
I think generally it is what was put in the RDC study, which was mainly, correct me if I'm wrong, Cheryl, but like books and DVDs and that type of thing. I don't think we put computers in there. There was a little bit of money for some branch development costs, but it was mainly those 2 capital projects that we.
So those purchases are all development charges. You still have the 1.3 in the other reserve as well.
90% of the books and that type of thing are come from the development charge and 10% from the library capital reserve. But the bulk of what we're taking out of the development charges would be like the books.
Either way, it's a healthy balance right now, I would think.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you.
I'm just going to add a little tiny bit of context as well. So I know when we're collecting development charges, we also make sure that there are certain projects specifically that have to do with expansion of spaces. So those development charges in particular can be used towards new library spaces when they're required. And I know that if we look at the development charge, as Carol was mentioning earlier, that when we say how much we're going to charge for, we certainly have different projects that we're planning against. So when we are thinking of expanding library branches, development charges can start to go towards that. And the larger reserve balance, we're going to start coming back with some more targeted ideas about how to start to spend that strategically across many of our branch facilities so that we have a plan to start to use this to address some of the improvements that need to be happening in various branch locations.
So if we do something.
Just your microphone there, please, Councillor Nock. Thank you.
That's pretty much where the funding would come from those 2 reserves. Yeah. So, okay.
Great. I actually did just have a quick question of clarification for you, Cheryl, based off of what you were saying about the radio tagging. Really exciting. At university, you could check out, I think it was like 75 books at once just by putting them on a stack and walk away 2 seconds later. But I did want to also be cognizant of what does that mean? I know you said there's staff time in scanning and tagging, but are we actually looking at removing staff and putting in these self-checkouts so that there isn't an option to have staff do checkouts? I'm very cognizant of we have a particular elderly community where that is their weekly engagement and interaction with people, and they really appreciate the humanistic side. So I just want to make sure that as we're advancing, we're not excluding other people as well. If you could just elaborate a bit on that, that would be great.
No, we are certainly not excluding the human element. And I think we've learned, especially coming out of COVID, how very important that human element has become to a lot of our library patrons. So no, we're not going to be removing staff. We are going to be keeping staff in place, freeing them up for more value-added interactions with the public. So maybe more readers advisory, maybe more one-on-one work with technical support that frees them up from having to be at the desk. That gives them a little bit more laterality to work with the public in new and exciting ways that are more meaningful to the public than just checking in and out items. But absolutely, people will still be present at the desk for those people who want that desk service, that conversation at the desk. We totally recognize the importance of library as community space, and that is part of that community space.
That's great. Thank you. Any additional questions? No? Okay, seeing none. To vote on this recommendation then, please, can we please have a mover? Moved by Councillor Foxton, seconded by Councillor Shantz. And all of those in favor? And that carries. Okay, on to item 4.2, which is the statistics for 2022. This report is to be received for information, and I will pass it back over to Cheryl Tilley, the Manager of Library Services, and Helen Schmery-Russell, the Director of Cultural Services, who are available for questions.
I'd just like to highlight that in 2021, RWL held its place with the other comparators in the various library systems. And in 2022, the library continued to rebound in the key areas of circulation, visitors, and membership. In fact, in 2022, we had a 4% increase in new members over our 2019 pre-pandemic numbers. So that was very exciting. And an interesting note, as we are doing in-depth data management of the numbers we're collecting, library accounts for children accounted for 13% of all membership, but circulation of children's materials accounted for 51% of the total number of items we circulate. So that's an indication that children are being underrepresented as cardholders. We're looking into how to better represent children as part of our active library members, even who might not hold their own individual library cards. So that's a point of interest for us when it comes to looking at statistics and operational information.
Helen, did you have anything that you wanted to highlight or add?
I think the other interesting thing in there is when you actually look at that big long appendix of graphs that's attached there, it's interesting to see how there are various trends that are happening within the library community, and we certainly follow along with many of those trends. You can see that some things, particularly library programming, became very chaotic during the pandemic, and it'll be interesting to see how that settles down. But when I was looking at it, I was certainly very pleased to see that we are following trends. If there's any declines, it's not that we are doing anything necessarily wrong, that the community is changing. And I know how much the staff are really making sure they're paying very close attention to those various trends and those statistics and trying to figure out where things are moving so they can begin to address them. And as Cheryl mentioned, library membership is one of those ones that we're really looking at. And how do we do specific things in specific locations in order to increase that membership? And it's certainly working.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors? Okay, that was just for information, so there's no vote needed. Report 4.3, which is the operational update for January to March of 2023, is also to be received for information, and I will turn it back over to Cheryl and Helen to make comment.
And in 2023, we see the same building of numbers that we saw in 2022 with January through March. We enjoyed 68,000 items in circulation, welcomed 650 new members, and enjoyed the presence of 26,000 visitors. So again, continuing on that upward trajectory. As Helen mentioned, looking at trends, we continue to notice the trend of a preference for print over electronic items. Electronic items were certainly strong during the pandemic, but as soon as our doors opened and people were able to enjoy checking out print items, they certainly went back to print items, although electronic remains strong. So we're continuing to build in that direction. And as well, we're seeing a return to the embracing of in-person programs over virtual, probably because of screen fatigue. But as we take that information and we build on that, so we know what programs to offer, what type of programs to offer, we know what to lean into. Print resources, in-person programs, etc. So we are from what the community wants. We're looking at circulating engaging collections, where folks are discovering us through social media and outreach events. And in the report, we're looking forward to further discussion with Woolwich Township about a Breslau branch for that community, RFID, which has already been mentioned. And looking forward to next year, we're starting to gather information this year toward 2024 for a service plan that will involve not only the region service plan, but reaching out in a meaningful and engaging way to township staff as we build a service plan looking forward that reflects all of the township needs and interests in a very meaningful way.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Shaw.
Thank you. And I'm still having trouble. Maybe I should be drinking water instead of tea. I don't know. Cheryl, you talked about programs. I just wonder, we've talked in the past about sort of coordinating the programming with the library and with the township staff, the township's staff, plural. Can you comment on how that's going or on any particular partnerships that have worked well?
Yes, it seems to ramp up a lot in the summer for Summer Reading Club as we offer programs in conjunction with the townships. The townships have enjoyed, for example, borrowing our story walk boards, going to locations where the townships are perhaps also offering an event, and we're present there as the library corner in certain events, working with various townships on finding out what the interests are. For example, I just had a good conversation with some township staff from North Dumfries and looking into offering some seniors programs this fall and planning ahead for that to find out where the gaps and interests lie. And circling back to Breslau, working very closely with the Breslau Community Center and the Woolwich Township staff to say, as we move into this space, what are some programs that you, Woolwich Township, are offering? How can we complement that? What other programs can we offer at the same time or at a slightly different time in order to support? There's also BIA events, and this is where, say, Elmira is very strong. We will run programs in conjunction with the BIA. For example, the holiday events are always very popular with the BIA and the township working with the library coming into the space. We offer the space, we offer resources, we offer staffing support, and the townships will come in or the BIA will come in and run programs, cookie decorating, tree planting, that type of thing in library locations. It's a very good working relationship we've developed with locations. Not to forget Wellesley Township, for example. We did Snowfest and Snow Yoga Day to help support the Wellesley Township Snowfest at the Linwood Community Center. So doing yoga in the snow, very exciting and very, very well enjoyed by the community. We eventually had to move indoors with the little ones, and we had snow pants story time. So again, that was in conjunction. We did our library programs in conjunction with the Wellesley Township event that was going on at the same time.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. That's all of our reports for today. The committee tracking list is on eScribe for everyone's information. Is there any other business, Councillor Foxton?
We went through the KPMG report, and nothing has evolved from that. There was supposed to be a community board type brought together, and nothing has evolved. And that's been a couple of years now. So I'd like to re-examine that report and see what recommendations there were and see if we can bring some of those to fruition. And the other thing was, I want to thank you and Cheryl, the Preservation Society staff praised you to the hilt. We want to put our Preservation Society in a portion of our library, and I think it got positive response from both yourself and Cheryl that it would work, and so we want to move ahead with that. And again, so let's get the thing going in motion. And the other thing is, you were asking about your fund, the $10,000. So go ahead, it's your turn.
Thanks. I was going to wait to bring that up after everybody else. But yeah, I was just curious. I wanted to know more about the Puttycombe Estate fund that is just lingering in the budget and has been for a long time. And I know that certainly we're looking to grow our library facilities as well as looking for more accessible facilities. I just wanted more background information as somebody new to this board about those funds. And that is fine if staff have to bring it back later if you don't have that information on hand. But if you do, I'd love to hear it.
So it looks like Carol has gone, but I'll see if Cheryl has anything sort of more high level that she can share, and we'll certainly be able to bring something back. So Cheryl, do you have anything you could add with that?
Yes, I can speak generally to why it has been lingering. We would like to use, the plans are in place to use the funds to improve the children's department upstairs at the New Hamburg Library. It is specific for use at the New Hamburg branch. Now, we've been lingering because there has been talk about, would we be able to put an elevator into New Hamburg, make the upstairs accessible? Currently, the children's department is not accessible at all. The cost of putting an elevator into the New Hamburg Library is very large because, for one, it's so close to the river that the mechanical room could not be below. It would have to be above, which means you have to put it on the roof, which means you have to reinforce the structure, and that just gets totally out of hand. So we have held back on how are we going to use that in improving the children's area until we knew what was happening with the elevator. Now, to make that a little bit more interesting, there is the talk happening now that the fire hall has purchased property at another location and may eventually,
You're not getting that facility. Sorry, I can tell you.
Okay. So we're back to saying
for a library. You might be getting the fire department's facility next door, but that has not gone through council. The new location, however, is not suitable for a library.
Okay. So thank you for that, because that is why it's lingering. There's so many conversations that are going on. We want to know that when we do invest that money, it is invested in the right location at the right time, i.e. upstairs in the children's department. And so there are some details that have to be resolved, such as elevator access to the upstairs. And that's what we've been waiting on. Happy to bring forward further information in future meetings as some of those pieces resolve themselves as we get further information.
So I guess just logistically, I'm wondering, and thank you very much for that background. That is great to know that that's meant for the children's department. I know it certainly has not crossed my council's table in terms of needing a new library facility. I know some are thinking about it, but that is not something on the radar. And I mean, I feel continuing to push things off of, well, we need to make it accessible, but what's the way to do it is action in and of itself of being inactive. So I was just curious if we could look at that, potentially how we work with the townships on going forward and making sure that we're aligning the same way so that things are working cohesively, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Thank you. Any additional business, councillors? No? Okay. And then our next meeting is going to be on August the 15th of 2023. And I guess we can just call to adjourn then, seeing no other business. Moved by Councillor Foxon, seconded by Councillor Nowak. All those in favor? Great. And we are adjourned. Thank you.